This is the Week in Sustainability from Workiva Carbon, formerly Sustain Life. It's where our team of experts and practitioners share weekly insights and commentary to keep you up to date about all things sustainability. Hello, and welcome to the Week in Sustainability. I'm Melissa Zucker, your host, and today we've got two stories for you. Obviously, a little commentary on the results of the 2024 presidential election and what that means with the second Trump administration. And then as well, a recap on Workiva's annual Amplify Conference in EMEA that was hosted just last week. So let's kick it off with the election news. So no new news to anybody at this point, but Trump, obviously, administration is a little bit of a blow to the country's climate agenda. Big picture, what can we expect? All the things that Trump did in his first term, as well as those that he has spoken to in his most recent campaign, likely pulling the United States out of the Paris Agreement, likely accelerating domestic oil production with new drilling, and likely seeking to dismantle the climate policies that were enacted during the Biden administration, notably the Inflation Reduction Act. Despite all of those intents, there is a really big however here, right? There are a lot of really powerful market dynamics that are already in place that will be very challenging, if not completely impossible, for Trump to reverse during this administration. So let's talk first about that landmark Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, which has already poured over $390 billion into net zero transition industries, such as electric vehicles, batteries, clean energy technologies. And a lot of that money, almost 80%, in fact, has flowed to Republican congressional districts, where both lawmakers and business leaders alike will want to protect that investment and the jobs that it brings into their communities. So it won't be so easy or palatable, I think, to claw that back. I also do want to take a moment to note that even from the regulatory perspective, we had already been seeing a real shift in states driving progress on climate rules. The locus for climate action had really already began to shift from federal to state level drivers and is likely going to continue to do so. So whether that's through state level funding of IRA related programs, emission cap rules like we see for certain industries like Washington State, New York State, or publicly supported ballot initiatives, like what we saw in California, just voted in on Tuesday as well, supporting a $10 billion green fund to fund climate, wildfire, natural disaster, and water. So we've seen over the past few years this kind of transference of the real ambition and the real kind of legislative and policy grounded infrastructure already well established in the states. And I would expect that to accelerate as well. These state level drivers also do hold true for corporate reporting. I think that's probably most easily evidenced by our landmark California climate rules, SB 261 and 253, that require emissions disclosure and climate related financial risk disclosure for large companies operating in the state of California. And that rule has served as an example for 4 other states, Minnesota, New York, Illinois, and Washington State, that have similar bills in various stages of proposal. I also do want to kind of shift it out a little bit to the broader context and really the monumental shift that we are seeing of integrated reporting of financial and non-financial sustainability data that is not going to be reactive to this election. We always talk about the EU CSRD here. It has such an incredible impact over 50,000 companies worldwide. And that is what is really driving the tone of sustainability disclosure. This is a really monumental shift in how corporate actors not only disclose, but also cross-functionally operate their businesses, pulling sustainability performance, quite frankly, into the purview of the finance team and office, and really framing it around performance and value creation. So I think it's really important to remember that the train has left the station, not a little bit, but it's in motion on this one. Especially for the larger and multinational corporations, sustainability is a value creation lever. This is about identifying and mitigating truly financially material risks and strategically capitalizing on similar opportunities. Let's also not forget that regulation stems primarily from investor pressure, right? From capital markets and investors demanding the provision of this standardized and decision useful information. so that they in turn can price risk effectively and allocate capital efficiently. So that demand isn't going anywhere, right? That is completely independent of regulation. And it's quite frankly what's fueling the regulation. Investors, particularly institutional ones, are prioritizing sustainability factors when making investment decisions. You have large investors, oftentimes pension funds, private equity firms, and they are very keenly aware of the very financially material risks associated with climate change. Many are now requiring companies to disclose their emissions and climate-related risks to ensure long-term value creation. And so again, that's not in response to any mandate, but rather in the pursuit of financial gain and economic returns. It's very fundamental to their core investment strategy. And then I think one final stakeholder that we need to remember here is consumer preferences, right? That's also driving a lot of corporate climate action here. We have increased public awareness of environmental issues, and a lot of businesses are seeking to align their values and their actions with that customer base and build loyalty. And that's especially true with the consumer facing industries. So retail, technology, energy, really facing these growing pressure from their end consumers, customers. Even in a pro fossil fuel Trump administration, I think it is unlikely, while he may delay, it is very unlikely that he will completely reverse or that we'll see a real reversal or stopping of these very powerful market dynamics already in place. So more to see, obviously, in what unfolds in this administration. I'm sure in the US we'll have a lot of domestic policy, but I do think it's really important for us to anchor for those of us that have been doing so much work in this space and all the corporate actors here. Regulation plays a role, but I think we've kind of moved beyond that, right? Regulation is only one such tool. It's one such lever that gets pulled in terms of managing changes in the market. And there's a lot of consumer driven, investor driven, and just market driven dynamics that have already taken place when it comes to sustainability. All right, so let's shift a little bit and let's talk about Workiva's Amplify EMEA conference. This was such an amazing gathering in Amsterdam just last week. Leaders in finance, accounting, risk management, sustainability, all exploring the future of corporate reporting and data integration. We had keynotes from industry pioneers and experts, and the event really focused mostly on the increasing complexity of financial and ESG reporting, the role that digital transformation has to play in facilitating that evolution, and how organizations are navigating in real time these evolving regulatory changes and external stakeholder pressures in this evolving landscape. So I think the overall sentiment that I took away was it is all about assured integrated reporting, and in the European market and for those multinational companies driven by the CSRD. This is what every corporate is focused on. And what was really amazing to see is that this is something that quite literally no one has quite figured out. Across several hand-raised surveys, across many sessions and panels, companies were indicating that they're not really feeling ready to meet the full requirements of CSRD reporting requirements, especially when it comes to assurance, and that they're essentially putting their best foot forward, expecting that they will be learning from year one efforts, certainly our year one, wave one efforts for companies that are required to disclose this coming January. And due to the stringent assurance requirements of that regulation, which frankly will continue to evolve a little bit as both new assurance standards are published and come to light, as well as auditors and assurers put these standards into practice in assurance engagements. That's going to continue to evolve. And so we spoke a lot, and I spoke to a lot of companies that really demonstrated how sustainability reporting has moved under the purview of the finance office. And that was so indicative of this real structural integration of financial and sustainability reporting truly coming together as one. With this, of course, comes a transference of some of those traditional accounting protocols. So internal controls, data governance, all of that kind of framework and process thinking that is so standard and typical in financial accounting and reporting, bringing that into sustainability reporting, particularly around greenhouse gas emissions management. And so again, really underpinning the criticality of cross-functional teamwork and collaboration across sustainability, audit, and financial reporting teams. So it was no better time than to launch the Workiva Carbon product to the EMEA market, really celebrating Workiva's position as the only unified platform for assured integrated reporting of financial and non-financial data. And I don't just say that because they pay me to. It really is amazing to see such a unified experience and platform that can speak to all of the different stakeholders that are involved in this really monumental requirement of assured integrated reporting. There were a couple of really powerful keynote speakers that I do want to share. I found them really so moving. Formula One Grand Prix driver and entrepreneur David Coulthard provided a really powerful keynote address that was focused on the power of teamwork to drive progress, learning from mistakes rather than just celebrating the victories and wins, which are of course important, but really learning from the challenges and mistakes to drive growth. Certainly a message that holds true regardless of your industry or profession. Similarly, a really moving fireside chat with Paul Pullman, Unilever former CEO and co-author of Net Positive. And he spoke about really the balance of regulation and market dynamics and driving innovation that's required for us to achieve a net positive climate transition. So the different tools in the toolbox, and I think that really goes back to where we started with the election, that regulation has a role to play. I think it's often in bringing the floor up, right? Standardizing, raising the bar of minimum requirements. It's literally what's legally required. Whereas you have really the leaders and the innovation and the R&D, which don't come from mandates, that comes from market dynamics and real drive. And so the balance of those two in accelerating and progressing towards hopefully net positive, but certainly net zero transition. Also spoke a little bit about COP29 taking place right around the corner in Azerbaijan and the focus on finance there and how we can create policies to channel finances to the developing countries that need that capital to transform towards a green economy. Workiva, of course, will be at COP29 this year. So excited. We'll have a bunch of colleagues on site running a full day of panels, lightning talks, interviews, main stage addresses, all from the Green Zone in the Extreme Hangout. So if you plan to be on site, definitely look us up. We'd love to see you. That's what I have this week for the Week in Sustainability. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Workiva Carbon provides organizations with an easy-to-use solution to manage the full life cycle of measuring, managing, and reporting carbon emissions. Now integrated into the same platform used to manage the world's most trusted financial and non-financial reporting. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this show on our YouTube channel or your favorite podcast platform. See you next week.